Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our presentation tonight. We'll give just a moment for everyone to log in and we'll get started. In the meantime, as we like to do, feel free to uh, drop your location in the chat function. We love to see where you're tuning in from, what the weather's like there. We're getting some storms blowing through Madison today, but I think the first wave has ended, and hopefully the rest will wait until after we're done. But again, put those comments and check-ins in the chat. If you have questions for our presenter, make sure to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of Zoom for that. That just lets us manage the questions a lot more easily so that we can make sure we get to all of them at the Q&A at the end. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a couple of words of introduction about the center, and then we'll get it over to our presenter and board chair, Bon French, to take us on a journey through Central Illinois tonight. All right, does that look good on your end there, Bon?
I can see my presentation.
Okay, all right. And the screen share is up for everybody else?
Looks great.
Okay, very good. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and get started. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's program, Classic Trains in the Land of Lincoln, Dick Neumiller's Central Illinois Photography. This is part of the Center for Railroad Photography and Art's monthly series of online presentations. I'm Scott Lotus, President and Executive Director, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you. We have quite a few first-time attendees joining us tonight, particularly from the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and we extend a special welcome to each of you. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us. Before we get started, I'd like to say a few words about the center. We love carrying out our mission of preserving and presenting significant images of railroading. If you're tuning in for the first time, we'd like you to know a little bit more about who we are. And if you're a longtime member, we want you to know how much we appreciate your support. Everything we do is possible because of you. Railroads and photography came of age together in the 19th century, and they share a vibrant relationship. This image from our John Gruber collection shows a crowd gathered in Walnut, Illinois, to witness a Burlington steam excursion in 1966. Now, this is my picture from 2019 when Union Pacific's Big Boy steam locomotive came through Friesland, Wisconsin, which has a population of about 200 and drew a crowd of almost 1,000 that day. There are hundreds of railroad museums and historical societies, but the center is the only one with this focus on railroading's visual culture. We also have a pretty unique business model. We don't have a museum or gallery space of our own. We have a business office and an archival storage facility, both located in Madison, Wisconsin. From these, we maintain a growing collection of more than 500,000 images that provide much of the material for everything else we do. And you can peruse many of them on Odyssey, our online collections management system that we launched last year. So far, we've shared nearly 13,000 of our images there, and we have more coming online every week. Our other main initiatives include putting together exhibitions that go to museums and galleries all over the country. Those include Railroaders, Jack Delano's Homefront Photography, which we produced with the Chicago History Museum, and which we were quite pleased to have at the Peoria Riverfront Museum in 2021 and 2022. And in addition to these online presentations, we also host conferences and events. This is our 2023 conference at Lake Forest College, north of Chicago. Our 2024 conference is coming up in June, and it's already sold out. We also make annual awards for creative imagery, and you have until May 15th if you'd like to enter this year. And then we publish books as well as a quarterly journal called Railroad Heritage. Each 68-page issue is ad-free and mailed out to our members in March, June, September, and December. This is most of our board and staff. We are a nonprofit organization funded primarily by our community of members whose support makes up about 70% of our annual budget. You truly empower everything we do, and we cannot thank you enough. If you'd like to join or learn more about us, you can visit our website, railphoto-art.org. You can follow us on social media. We're at Rail Photo Art on all of the major platforms. And you can watch many more presentations on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/railphotoart. And this picture includes our presenter this evening, and it is my great pleasure to introduce him, Bon French, who chairs our board of directors and is really the driving force behind so much of what we do at the center. Bon is also a talented and dedicated railroad photographer with the immodest goal, those are his words, of photographing every railroad in the country. He is also a native son of Peoria, where he is deeply involved with the Riverfront Museum. He spent his career in finance, much of it building up Adams Street Partners into one of the world's preeminent private markets investment managers. Now in semi-retirement, he helps build up organizations, and we are fortunate beyond words to have his leadership and his friendship. Bon, take it away.
Thanks, Scott. It's very generous.
My absolute pleasure.
Sir, here. Show from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay.
And we just
well, thank you very much.
We still need your screen share.
I just did it.
It's not showing up yet.
Okay.
I think maybe you started the presentation but haven't shared yet.
Okay. I don't see the share button actually.
Should be
Let me go to Zoom. Hang on.
Yeah, bottom.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. There it is.
And what I'm trying to get to here is.
That's it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now, can you see it? Okay, great. Thank you.
No, looks
well,
good.
It's my pleasure, now that the hardest part of the evening is over successfully, to share Dick Neumiller's color photography with you. Dick and I were best friends, even though he was 21 years my senior. This presentation is really a two-part presentation that was developed for the Burlington Railroad Historical Society for their annual meet in April, a year ago, in Morton, Illinois, featuring Peoria Railroading. And some of the members had seen a presentation that I had given a year earlier to the Rockford chapter of the NRHS on Peoria Railroading in the 50s, 60s, and 70s using Dick Neumiller's color slides. And so they wanted me to create a version of that for their Peoria meet, but expand it to feature the best of Dick's CB&Q photography, regardless of location. So the first part of the presentation is focused on the Peoria area, and the second part is focused on the 50s and 60s CB&Q images, most of which are in central Illinois, in Peoria, Galesburg, Cameron, Kewanee, Rochelle, and so forth. However, there are some terrific images on various points along the Mississippi River, and a couple in Denver and St. Louis. Dick had 400 CB&Q images, remembering that the CB&Q merged with the BN in March of 70. So that was 54 years ago, but he had 400 images, and I'm going to show about 60 tonight. And that was the second part. And then the first part is about 100 Peoria area images of the other 13 railroads in Peoria. And I'll talk about that in a second, since there were 14 railroads that went into Peoria. Scott was always amazed when I tell him that Dick and I, in one of our trips, would photograph 50 or 60 railroads. They say, Scott, well, we could photograph 14 before we left town, so that helped the count. Dick Neumiller was born in Peoria in 1931 and was a lifelong resident until his passing in 2015 at age 83. Dick and his wife Nancy were among my parents' best friends, and I grew up with their children, Jane, Roger, and Kate. Jane and Kate remain great friends to this day. Roger unfortunately passed away of COVID during the COVID time. Dick spent much of his career as head of legislative affairs for Central Illinois Light Company, or SOCO, in Peoria, and this necessitated many trips to Springfield, Illinois, our capital, and Washington, D.C. Dick spent many years on the Peoria City Council and was even mayor of Peoria for a while. His uncle, Louis Newmiller, was chairman and CEO of Caterpillar, headquartered in Peoria, having worked his way up through the ranks over a 50-year career. So the Newmiller name was very big in Peoria. Dick went to Knox College in Galesburg, which, as many of you know, is where the Santa Fe and the CBQ have major lines and operations. And he was there in the early 50s. Dick loved photography and began shooting Kodachrome slides in 1950. He had excellent equipment, Leicas, Canons, and so forth, and many lenses. He belonged to the Peoria Camera Club and often won awards for his work, which included many things beyond trains. As I said a minute ago, Dick was 21 years my senior, but early on we realized that we both liked trains. Our first trip together was to Edelstein Hill, and Chillicothe to shoot the Santa Fe in Peoria. Dick was 30 and I was 9. This was in August of 1961. Consequently, subsequently, we took over 35 trips to photograph trains in every state and every Canadian province. In August of 2011, on the same weekend, we actually repeated our first trip to Edelstein and Chillicothe to celebrate 50 years of rail photography together. Dick asked me to take over his rail slide collection in 2007, which was a surprise to me, actually, because on many of these trips, we talked about, what he should do and wondered, where it was going to go and so forth and so on. In the end, Dick's collection contains over 82,000 images covering 800 railroads, mainly in the US and Canada. And Dick was meticulous in labeling and organizing his slides. Every one has the exact date, location, the passenger train name or number, and often the f-stop and shutter speed. Additionally, all slides are color-coded with a marker on the edge of the slide that indicates whether it's Kodachrome 10 or 12 or 25, 64, 200, 250, or so forth. So there's a lot of documentation of the collection. Lastly, I would say Dick loved color and got more excited about rail photography as the steam engine faded, since the diesels in the post-World War II streamliners were brilliant in their new color schemes. So Dick carried the official guide with him everywhere he went and planned his trips around the passenger train schedules in the photo locations of choice. And he attempted to photograph every streamliner in America. It wasn't always possible, obviously. But the point is, this included, I'll call it, lesser known roads like the Monon or the Chicago and Eastern Illinois, the Great Western, the Kansas City Southern, the Wabash, the Frisco, the Mop, in addition to the big name roads. I have finished digitizing Dick's images at full resolution, so it's a huge file. And my good friend Paul Wusso has helped me, and his son-in-law, Pat Zeller, in doing this over the last 15 years. And without them, none of this would have been possible. So let me move on. Dick was a very good friend of Paul Stringham and Bob McMillan. And this is a great photo taken by their mutual friend, Dick Johnson, of them on one of their field trips to the Kankakee Beaverville in Southern, not too far from Peoria. Now, Dick is a very tall guy, and Bob McMillan's a pretty tall guy, and Paul Stringham's a pretty short guy. But Paul's not standing in a hole. They're actually on level ground. It's just that one is so much bigger than the other. I actually knew Paul Stringham too. I met him when I was in high school in Peoria at Woodruff High School, and I was doing a research project at the Peoria Historical Society, and he was there working on a project too. And we stayed in contact over the years, so it was fun to have. A little bit about Peoria for those of you who are not aware. It's on the Illinois River. It's rough justice halfway between Chicago and St. Louis, about 150 miles in each direction. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 14 railroads that came into Chicago. And so we're going to do a rail fans tour that starts in the north and ends in the south. And just off the top of this map is the Santa Fe Transcon. So we're going to start in Chillicothe and go west up Edelstein Hill to Edelstein and then come down the Chicago Northwestern, which goes under there in Edelstein, now the UP, and come into Peoria and visit all the roads here in this site. So the Rock Island, actually, besides the 14 railroads, and I'll read them off here, there were actually 19 lines in Peoria. So kind of remarkable. The Rock Island had 3 lines, one from Bureau, where it intersected with the main east-west main line, and another that came directly from Rock Island, which was the old Rock Island and Peoria Railroad, was severed and it's now pretty much fully abandoned, but that was active. And then the Rock Island owned from Peoria to Peak and the Peoria Terminal Railroad, so that was the third leg. Chicago Northwestern had 2 lines, one coming down from Sterling and the other, and then going south to South Pekin and St. Louis. Peoria Pekin Union was the terminal switching road in Peoria. The TP&W, Toledo, Peoria, and Western had 2 lines, one from Indiana and one to the east and then to the west to connect with the Santa Fe at Lomax and into Fort Madison, where they tied up. Chicago and Illinois Midland came up from Springfield and Banna. GM&L actually had 2 lines, 3 depending how you count them, but they had a daily train from Bloomington. The line also went down to Springfield, and then there was a branch line from DeWitt over to Streeter and then to Varna and then down to Metamora and Washington, where in days past they could tie into the TP&W and go into Peoria. And let's see, then there's the Santa Fe Pekin branch, the Peoria and Eastern, which was a subsidiary of the New York Central, came in from Indianapolis, Danville, and Bloomington, Urbana-Champaign. The M and St. L came in from the west, the Peoria Gateway, over the Mississippi River at Keithsburg and through Monmouth and important interchange with the Santa Fe at Nemo and into Peoria. CB&Q came in from Galesburg. The Illinois Central came in from Decatur. The Illinois Terminal came up from St. Louis to Springfield to Peoria. The Pennsylvania Railroad came in from Terre Haute, the so-called Vandalia line. And then the Nickel Plate came in, and that's still operating as a Norfolk Southern today, again from Frankfort, Indiana to Hoopeston and Gibson City and Bloomington and into Peoria. Peoria is a hilly place. Peoria Heights, where I grew up, is literally 300 feet above the level of the Illinois River. And the topography of the land dictated where these railroads were built. You can see a lot of railroads going straight to the south, and that's because it's pretty flat that way. But Santa Fe has a pretty big hill up Edelstein from Chillicothe westbound. It's about a 1% grade. It's one of the steepest grades west of the Rockies for the Santa Fe. The Northwestern had a big hill, Pioneer Hill or Randor Hill, some people used to call it, to the top Pioneer. CB&Q didn't have a big grade. They stayed along a Kickapoo Creek Valley, but the M and St. L had a big hill called Maxwell Hill. The TP&W going west had Glassford Hill. The Santa Fe from Pekin to Morton had to wiggle around. You can see that on the map. That was a hill. The Illinois Terminal in green had Caldwell Hill. That was nearly a 3% grade, 2.65% to be precise. Pensy had a hill coming they used the nickel plate to Farmdale Junction and got off on their own line to go to Morton, but they had a hill to get there. The nickel plate had a hill up to Crandall and over to Bloomington. And then finally, the TPU&W going eastbound had a hill to climb to go to Washington, Illinois, departing sort of the flatlands at the beginning of its yard in Farmdale Junction. So all this created quite a bit of activity and helpers in various ways. So we'll start with a tour. This is Santa Fe in the Chillicothe westbound with 3 FTs coming off the Illinois River Bridge in the distance. This was taken February 16th, 1957. And I love both the color and the composition here, where the straight line of the eastbound main takes your eye right to the river bridge, but Dick used these 2 signals as elements too to frame the train. And almost all the trains at that time came into the yard. It was a crew change point, and at that time, almost all the conductors had their own cabooses. This was taken one day later, of February 17th of 57, and so you have a black Fairbanks Morse H1044 switching the caboose track there. Again, Dick framed it with the lantern, the switch stand, so that's pretty neat stuff. Also in 57, in April, Dick photographed the westbound Grand Canyon with 3 Alco PAs on the lead. And actually, what's neatest to me about this photo is the picture of the old station and division headquarters behind it. My good friend Tom Hoback's father worked in that building, and he spent most of his career on the Santa Fe. And Tom actually grew up in Chillicothe and has modeled this building and part of this area in his basement, which is very neat. This is how I think of the Santa Fe, and there's a funny story behind this, but this was in 1965. Eastbound Super Chief with 5 F units is meeting westbound GP20s with a freight train. And I remember going to the hobby store in Peoria at this time called Signal House, and Mr. and Mrs. Luger ran Signal House. And I remember telling her so excitedly that I'd been to Chillicothe and in the early 60s, and she goes, why would anybody want to go to see the Santa Fe? There's nothing but F units and GP20s. And I thought, okay, maybe I ought to think about that, but it was all new to me. But I've remembered that comment to this day, because as we all know, in a few years, this changed dramatically. And so I still think about that today when I'm lamenting whether I should go out or not, because it seems like everything is the same, and it'll probably change. So we should all go out, not worry about it. Now, as I said, Santa Fe was Chillicothe was a crew change point, and Dick got this great telephoto shot of the crew members on the fly, one getting off and one getting on there, and that's usually what happened. Of course, this was at slow speeds. The Super C, which started running in the late 60s, they didn't even stop the engine for that one. And they had the head end lined up along the platform, and they would get on and off, and that train literally never stopped. Now, this was on our first trip that Dick and I took. This is August 27th of 1961, and that is yours truly in the picture, 9-year-old Bon French watching these 1-year-old, literally nearly brand new GP20s in 1961. We'd photographed this train coming down Edelstein Hill, and it went into the yard, and we caught up with it switching. So I think the crew was looking at me warily, but I wasn't going anywhere. So now moving up the hill, this is obviously well known to everybody as Houlihan Curve. It's still a great place today. These are a 3-unit set of FTs going westbound. I counted one time, Dick has 75 Santa Fe photos with FTs in them. So he was prolific in this era. And I should say over 7,000 Santa Fe slides, ending in 1995 or 6. And of course, things did change in terms of motive power. This was just a little ways up from Houlihan's Curve. It's about a half mile or more walk, with two brand new FB45s coming downhill with the eastbound Super Chief number 18. This can't be done today, unfortunately. I've done a lot of before and after photos of Dick's Ford, where Dick stood. And you can go to the spot and stand on this hill, but it's in the woods now. Once the cold lines were no longer in use and the BNSF or the Santa Fe weren't maintaining the roadsides in this way, it's all grown up, and it's even in the winter, it's a forest of trees now. So unfortunately, it's hard to see this. Now, further up the hill is, up Santa Fe Road is what we call the Little Bridge over the tracks, a very famous place for rail photographers. But this was a fun thing in September of '68, a brand new U-28 CG and brand new U-30 CG powering the westbound Grand Canyon uphill. So this was obviously not just the old F units and GP20s anymore. And that didn't last too long, but I included the going away shot too, because it was, I thought, quite a juxtaposition with the baggage car immediately behind it that had been in service for who knows how many decades. And this was always the favorite spot of mine, with the wide open countryside and the gravel road going off into the distance. So now up at Edelstein, oops, sorry. Goofing myself up. It's a nice telephoto shot from the highway bridge that goes over what's now the BNSF. This is Highway 40. Today it was Route 88 when this photo was taken. And you can see the Edelstein Depot, and that's a eastbound train with a GP20 and a couple of U-25Bs coming at us. But the only reason I really put this photo in is that right where the engine is the Northwestern underpass, and you can see the bridge girders there. And so that's where we're going to go next. And this is looking north up the Chicago Northwestern. Santa Fe's over the top. This location was one of my favorites. I was Boy Scout, love scouting, love camping, and with the permission of the farm family that lived in the far quadrant there on the northwest side, we would camp overnight and write down all the trains that we'd seen on a 24-hour basis. And usually it was about 9 or 10 on the Northwestern and 60 or so on counting the passenger trains on the Santa Fe. So it's a place with a lot of fond memories. But I like this telephoto shot with the jointed rail. Dick was famous for taking sequence shots. John Gruber obviously did the same. And I found some that Dick did that predated John's famous photos coming through the tunnels of Tunnel City on the Milwaukee Road. But and I didn't put them all in here, but this was a sample of it. So the Northwestern had these big engines to get up and down the hills in the Peoria area. The SD45s without the dynamic brakes, which made them somewhat unusual. Now, this is in 1980 at the top of the hill, looking north at Pioneer. And there's a southbound train. Remember, this is left-hand running on the Northwestern. So with the SD40-2 and coming at us, and the two SD45s are waiting to go north once the southbound train clears. And if we go to the bottom of the hill on our rail tour, we find this. Dick photographed this M&L train with an F3 and two F7s coming down Maxwell Hill and joining the other railroads coming down Kickapoo Creek. They were in parallel. The M&L was on the south, the CB&Q in the middle, and the Northwestern on the north. Now, if we go a few miles up the line toward Galesburg on the CB&Q, or at Edwards, Illinois, and a nice overpass there to this day. And this is a set of Burlington FTs and F7s that are actually waiting for steam excursion special with the 4960, but this is just a great shot at Edwards. If we go back down the hill to where the three lines are, there's 4 GP9s here in the Northwestern going north, and the Northwestern is now long. This is in 1967, and so they had absorbed the M and St. L 7 years earlier, and by building this cutoff, it was called Molitor Junction, they eliminated the M and St. L track down Kickapoo Creek, the maintenance of all the bridges, and they pulled up their yard, Bartlett Yard, which we'll get to in a moment, but consolidated everything on their own yard. So there was still coal traffic that the Northwestern serviced Midland Coal Company and Midland Electric, and it was just this solved a number of puzzles in terms of switching over from the M and St. L track to the Northwestern yard. And here it's just almost turning a few degrees. The same location is where all three tracks are together. This photo was taken in 1972 in the early BN days. CBQ U25C with U28C behind it, with Powder River Basin coal traffic going back to Galesburg. And you can see on the right the M and St. L line and the trestle there, but with no track on it. And then what I call the Burlington, it's now the BN in the middle, and then to the left is a bridge for the Northwestern. And moving down Kickapoo Creek, this is the big bridge that the Northwestern Southern Illinois Division has. This is a train going north. And what's actually most interesting to me about this is underneath the bridge, you can see there's looks like a gravel road, but that was the abandoned M and St. L track. And then there's the Burlington track, and then there's the Northwestern track. So this bridge crossed all three railroads and Kickapoo Creek. And now we're in Bartlett Yard, and Dick has some neat photos here, took a lot of photos. And I'm just showing a handful of them. And this is in April of 1960, just the same year that the Northwestern bought the M and St. L. We have 2 GP9s at the Bartlett Yard engine house, which was a Quonset hut, and it was famous in that sense. And I love this photograph that Dick took of the bay window, wooden bay window caboose, Peoria Gateway sign on it, and it is standing, of course, in Bartlett Yard. And behind it, you can see the first track which is the Burlington, and then beyond that, it's the Chicago Northwestern. So all three lines together. And on the other side of the Quonset hut is this wonderful thing. And Dick took a number of photos here, but I just included one. But you may remember that the M and St. L was an early adopter of piggyback service, and they retrofitted some of their flat cars with some old rails and ramps, and these are longer and shorter PBQ, piggyback quick trailers that they used. And of course they'd set them out, I guess, here so they wouldn't get jostled in the yard, but this begs to be modeled. Looking north up Bartlett Yard with the GP9 as almost a framing device and the Peoria Gateway symbol, you can see that Northwestern bridge at the far end of the yard. That's a sequence at the top of the hill. This is just past west of Bellevue, which is a small community. It's still there. And this train is going to get closer and closer and closer, and Dick included even more, but I just, for the sake of brevity, shared a few here. And it comes down Maxwell Hill in the Bartlett Yard. And now Dick is near Peoria Terminal Tower, and he's photographed the train as it's come into the yard. You can see the headquarters there, and the the Quonset hut's behind. This is Route 29 going over, which a short little while becomes Route 24 as they switch sides along the river. And the engines have uncoupled from their train. There's 3 F units and a GP9, which was pretty typical at this point in time. And what's neat about this particular location is that Dick, this is the same day, without really moving, Dick could whirl around and photograph the Northwestern. And this is, again, as a reminder, is in May 14th of 1960. So here are 3 GP9s. They were all built in 1959. And so these engines are only a year old. And that was kind of fun to see, too. Now, again, standing in pretty much the same spot, a great photo of a westbound TP&W train with an F unit, F3 number 100, and an Alco RS2 behind it, number 203, going by Peoria Terminal Tower. This whole area was called Iowa Junction. You might say, why would it be Iowa Junction in Peoria, Illinois, which is in central Illinois? But it turns out the predecessor to the M and St. L was the Iowa Central Railroad, and so it came from. So, hence the name of this particular junction. And I believe people may still refer to this, the railroaders and so forth, as Iowa Junction. The TP&W, for a short while between its own tracks in East Peoria and its own bridge over the Illinois River and its own tracks past Hollis, there's a short stretch here on the Peoria side of the river where it has trackage rights over the Peoria and Pekin Union, and then the Peoria terminal. And so always had to get orders for clearance, and all these tracks are present here. The Peoria terminal, which was run by the Rock Island, the PMPU, that's the Burlington track curving in to join it all, and the Northwestern's out of the picture to the left, and the M and St. L comes in behind us. And we're going to chase the train down to Bartonville, which isn't very far away, along Route 24, and this is a nice broadside of the F unit and the RS2. And then a little further down the road near Mapleton is the Y, which you can see the north leg of, and still there today at Colby. And this is where the Keokuk Junction actually has more tracks today and small yard, and where their trains originate and depart from and begin their transfers in the Peoria area. But kind of nice to see this. And we're back at PT Tower. It's a good view of the tower. And there's a eastbound TP&W train with 2 RS11s, 400 and 402. And you'll see the M and St. L coal car behind. That's not on the M and St. L track. That's in the Northwestern yard. There was quite a bit of interchange here. The date of this, again, is May 14th, 1960. So almost all these photos that I've shown in the M and St. L yard, the Northwestern, and these 2 TP&W trains are all taken in either April or May of 60. This is taken in 66, and of course Dick had a photo of the head end too, grabbing orders, but I just thought it was fun to show this. Here's the operator who'd been there for years, handing up his orders to the conductor. And of course, the conductor's in a bay window caboose and doesn't have to do a thing except open the window. And the train's going pretty slowly. So it's a fun sequence to see him, hardly move a muscle to get his orders. Now, this is a more recent picture taken in 1984, March 31st of 84, so literally 40 years ago, hard to believe. But there's 2 SD40-2s going back to Galesburg with empty Powder River coal trains taken from the highway bridge. And over on the left is the Adams Street yard of the Northwestern. And on, way back would be where PT Tower was. And the reason I really wanted to show this photo is this is a going away shot. And you have the Northwestern in the foreground, and on the Burlington, and all that empty area in the back, including the entrance and exit ramps to Interstate 474 on the site of Bartlett Yard. And so all that stuff that we had just seen a few images earlier is completely gone. And I haven't been there recently, but I was told by Dave Jordan that this is practically all woods now. So you would never know there was a major facility here. Now, going back into town and moving up on our rail tour up the Peoria River, this is Dar Street. And BN sent just about anything to move their coal trains, including 2 Northern Pacific F9s taking empties back to Galesburg. So in those early days, this was taken in also 1972. You could count on just about anything coming through. And here we have 3 F units on the Rock Island going southbound past Hiram Walker's with the P&Q yard about to cross the river in a few blocks. And you'll notice ever present in Peoria pictures are yellow equipment, either from Caterpillar or Laterno or Wabco, which now today is Komatsu, and still moving these loads. Those are scraper bowls that are manufactured in Joliet, came down on the Rock Island, and now they're going to get moved to Decatur, where the final assembly of those scrapers was. And this is the Illinois River Bridge on the PNPU. That's Roger there. But what I really like about this, it's a small little switcher. This is SW7 is towing this entire unit coal train across the Illinois River to return it to the Burlington to go back to Galesburg. So obviously, the PNPU is getting its money's worth out of that switch engine today. And here's another shot taken from the bridge tender tower that's still there today. At the side, the river's behind us. The Peoria terminal crosses over on this dime, and it's still there today. What's neat about this, besides the caboose, is the PNPU roundhouse is in the background, and that serviced not only a freight yard on that side of the river behind the roundhouse, but Peoria Union Station and all the passenger trains of all the railroads that came in that used that station, which was actually every railroad but the Emmons, St. L, and the Rock Island. And Emmons, St. L used the Rock Island station. All the passenger engines were serviced in that roundhouse. And then on the upper right-hand coordinate quadrant of the picture is the Peoria Stockyards, which is now long gone. So just about everything in this photo has disappeared today. This is at the Burlington Yard, just a few blocks further north. There's a Cedar Street bridge, just a little bit of it in the corner on the right, and 2 really nice looking Burlington SD7s with Burlington caboose getting their train ready to go back to Galesburg. This is another photo of the yard in rough justice the same place. In the BN era, this would have been, this is actually in February of 77. The other picture was taken in April 66. But I just want to show everybody what the layout of the yard looked like. And this is all gone today. I mean, there's P&Q tracks through here, but everything here is gone. Now, a few more blocks up the river is where the TP&W crossed the Peoria terminal, again, run by the Rock Island. This is Walnut Street Tower. This is obviously the TP&W is coming across its bridge. And off to the right, sorry, the left is the Franklin Street Bridge. And you can see a string of reefer cars behind the train on the other side of the river, which are undoubtedly going to the Santa Fe to go west. So again, neat photo. And this is a photo that many of you liked that Dick took getting down to the river level. A lot of neat color here. One of TP&W's 2 GP7s with the F3A number 101. What makes that engine reasonably interesting is it started life as a demonstrator for EMD as an F3B, and the 100 and 101 were sold to the TPW, and after some years, short years really, they rebuilt the B unit into an A unit since that was more practical for them. So you can see the Walnut Street Tower in Peoria on the other side of the river. Now, the river floods, and Dick has several photos, not just of this flood, but other floods. The reason I included this was several. One, there's a dredge or a crane in the channel doing some kind of repairs to the TP&W bridge. This was taken in 1962, January 25th of 62. So it's a precarious situation, and I'm not sure quite how they're stabilizing everything there with this high water and rapid current, but they're working on something that was important. You can see the Walnut Street Tower on the other side of the river. And what's also interesting here are the bridge piers without a bridge. That was the Illinois Terminal or Illinois Traction River Bridge across to their station, which was just a few blocks away, became the Peoria Police Station, actually. The Illinois Terminal, brand new streamliners in 1949 or so couldn't navigate some of the vertical curves on the Peoria side of the river, and so they had to stop in East Peoria, and they ran a shuttle across that bridge for a while, and that stopped around 1950, I think. So the last use of this bridge for the IT was in 1950. And now we'll go up to the Rock Island Depot. Again, a few blocks north. This was a great shot of the afternoon rocket, probably the 3 o'clock rocket to Chicago. And this was a wonderful era where everybody, even the Rock Island, had round-in observation cars. And we're looking north at a large crowd getting on the train. Everybody's pretty well dressed. We have various warehouses and supply buildings on the left. That eventually became the Sears block. See some pictures of that. And then later, it's the site today of the Peoria Riverfront Museum. And for those of you that are from Peoria, you'll notice something that's not in this photo, and that is the Murray-Baker Interstate Highway Bridge has not yet been built. This would be very visible, less than a mile away. But this photo was taken on August 17th of 55, and that highway bridge was built in the late 50s, a few years later. Now this is in 1957, June 2nd, and the jet rocket #1 is arriving in a cloud of dust to maybe some very astonished onlookers. You have to recall that Rock Island just eliminated steam a few years earlier, and so this is 57, and so to go, and the crews too. I mean, we're used to running steam most of their career, and now we're running what looks like a spaceship coming into town. Neat old automobiles on the left. And this is another view a few days later. This is June 6th, the same engine, but in the morning, getting ready for, this is in June, so the light's well to the northeast. And this train is getting ready to depart to Chicago, probably the 7 a.m. rocket. And I love this photo of a lady maybe saying goodbye to some of her friends on the train. And you can see how low slung these cars are, and how even an ordinary person seems large compared to the cars, and how full the train is. So Dick took some interesting photos of all of this stuff, and I just included a handful here. And the Rock Island was known for having all kinds of motive power. I sort of bought one of everything. This is a DL-109 that was re-engined called Christine, number 621. It was built in 1941. This picture is taken in June of 66. You can see the Sears block now there on the left. And again, Dick took a lot of photos, but we'll just do with this one for the day. This is a more typical situation, also in 66, actually only 3 days later, June 15th. This is E8648 getting ready to leave town with the 7 a.m. rocket. And about a mile north up the river was the freight yard and engine terminal, roundhouse, and so forth. And here's an elderly SW1 switching the cars. And what I liked about this, besides the brand new Caterpillar D8H, was the MNCNL car that's now part of the Northwestern. And this was taken in June of '66. And all this is run by the Iowa Interstate today, the Rock Island, up to Bureau and beyond, to Iowa and to Blue Island. This is an M420W, number 800. We had a couple of these. This was ex-Providence and Worcester, number 2001. Behind it's a GP8, and behind that's an SD20. This is just north of Peoria along Route 29. Now we're going to cross over to East Peoria to take a tour of things here. This is an Illinois terminal photo that Dick took in April of '61. And there's a number of things interesting about this. One, everything in this photo, except for Farm Creek, which is there, and the bridge, which is now Tractor Drive over to the Caterpillar tractor plant, which is off to the left. Everything else in this photo is gone. The tracks, it's a bike path now. The yard is gone. The buildings are all gone. What's here now is the Logan Roadhouse, the Bob Michael Bridge, the Embassy Suites. So, I mean, this is totally transformed. So that's one thing that's interesting. And the other, if I can do this, is note the people on the train, on the first. Scott, can you see that still screen sharing blown up? I don't know if you can or not. Anyway,
yeah, I can. I can. It looks good.
Okay, great.
Top of the box car.
Yeah. So you know it. This was hard to imagine. Okay, 1961. So they're switching. The Farm Creek yard was very short, so it took a number of tracks to build a train. And they had this big, almost 3% hill to climb, which they're about to do. So they need a lot of power, even for a short train. And because they didn't have radios or anything, you have the first crewman standing on the first box car, since there's a lot of curves here, relaying signals to the engineer. And then there's a gentleman in the field relaying signals from the gentleman standing by in the yard with the cars. And so obviously, they all trusted each other mightily, given the circumstances. And the engineer had to be pretty gentle, pulling and pushing, knowing that one of his crew members was standing without any support or railings to build the train. So, all right. So it's a picture of the same train getting ready to go up along Farm Creek. The TPW is on the other side of Farm Creek, and neat view. And the train is left, and it's a great view of their red Illinois terminal bay window caboose with the lanterns on the end. And further on, up Caldwell Hill we go. Again, this is a bike path from East Peoria to Morton today. It's still a 2.65% grade on your bike. So it's a lot easier to ride downhill East Peoria than uphill to Morton. But it's a great thing. And now we're going to go over, not very far in East Peoria, to the DPW yard. This is where the nickel plate, which became the N&W in 1964, and ultimately the Norfolk Southern crossed the TPW line, and this is an RS11 number 401 coming in to the end of the beginning of their yard there. And what I really liked about this was the freshly painted red Burlington coal hopper. So I thought that was pretty neat. I have a number of those on my model rear, and if anybody doubted that they had red coal hoppers, here's an example when they were new. And on the nickel plate, This is in the same location, going under the Highway 150 bridge, which is still there. Nickel plate GP9 and two RS3s crossing the TP&W, and they'll end up in the PNPU yard in East Peoria. And here we are there. This is a different day, but this is, well, these pictures were all taken in 1960. The first one in April. This was taken in November of 1960. An RS3 with two GP9s departing for Bloomington, Gibson City, Frankfort, Indiana. And Dick chased this train for a while and got a number of photos. I just put this one in. The reason is the caboose. By the way, this is just across the diamond. We showed a few slides earlier. This is the TP&W yard to the right. And before it was the nickel plate, this was the Lake Erie and Western. And this is actually a genuine Lake Erie and Western caboose. It's numbered 134. And wooden caboose. And it was built approximately in 1900. I looked up some of the lower numbers of cabooses on the Lake Erie and Western, and they were built in the late 1890s. And I looked up some of the higher numbers, and they were built in 1902 or so. So I didn't have this one precisely, but it's right around 1900. Now remember, we're in 1960 here, and so this caboose has been running for 60 years. And I did a version of this presentation with a lot more nickel plate material in it for the Nickel Plate Historical Society meet when they were in Peoria about a dozen years ago. And they really went nuts over this image with the marker lamps by the cupola and so forth and so on. So it was fun. So moving over to the TP&W yard, which is just right there, some reasonably new power at the time in 1962, RS11 and RS2s, a lot of Alcos. And speaking of new, this was a brand new GP30, a one-unit order. This was built in September of 63, and the date of the slide is October 5th of 63. So I don't think this engine has yet made it on a TP&W road trip. And Dick went crazy with photos, but I just included this one. So, also, when the Illinois Terminal gave up their Farm Creek yard, which was in the mid-60s, for better, more efficient places to yard their trains from St. Louis and Springfield, they moved to the TP&W yard for some years in the mid to late 60s before ultimately going to the PNPU. And they leased a 4-unit set of F7s from the RF&P. And Dick got some great photos of these units. We have all the numbers here, but for the sake of time, I won't go into it. They did not run the A units very long, a couple of months, maybe 3 months. Some of the IT historians can be precise about it, but obviously it was harder for the crews to see. And so they returned the A units back, but they kept the two F7Bs. So, but seeing the A units in service was pretty unusual. It's a great image. This is more typical of what the Illinois Terminal would run. This is again the TP&W yard with the GP7 and SW1200 and an F7B. Just to note, that is SW1200 784, and that engine is now the one that is in the custody of the Monticello Railroad Museum. It's being runs and it's being restored. It's going to be repainted until it's into its original scheme. So that's kind of neat to have a photo of it in service. This was taken in 1966. And another photo of the Illinois Terminal in the TP&W yard. Both these trains look like they're headed east, but the Alco number 800 is going to go east. but the IT train to get onto its line has to back out of the yard and then go over the N&W interchange track and use the N&W up to Farmdale where it got the Pensy line to Morton, paralleled the IT and rejoined the main line there. This was fun for me because I could ride my bike from home to here, and particularly with the inbound trains, knowing that they were going to take this interchange track and almost come to a halt there, the engineman would let me ride in the cab as they pulled way out, through East Peoria and then cleared the switch to back their whole train back into the yard. And I would enjoy about a 25-minute or 30-minute cab ride and end up right at my bicycle again. So that was fun. Speaking of more new things, the TP&W bought some new SW1500s in 1968. This builder's date is February, and the slide is taken February 18th. So brand new. The Illinois Terminal bought new power SD39s. They were built in 69. This was taken in early 71. This was the Norfolk and Western on the interchange track with a mix of power there. And the nickel plate in the P&P yard is coming in from the east with one-year-old GP30s in 1963. And at the P&PU engine house is old Alco S2. This was built in 1941, and this slide was taken in 65, still in service. This is a picture of the P&PU yard. There was an A yard, B yard, and jobs working both in both ends, so it was a busy place. CNIM went there. They had one of the unique RS 1325s in this photo. This picture was taken in 61. The engine was built in 60. It spent its whole career there. There's always an interesting mix of power at the P&PU yard. These are nickel plate Alcos. P&E caboose, cooker via Peoria. Again, interesting mix of IT and GM&O power in the engine terminal. Rock Island coming in to the P&PU yard with long transfer cut. P&E was considered New York Central. It's 4 F units here in the yard in 1966. There's a rail's eye view of GM&O's F3 810B. CNIM train with the RS 1325 leading an SD18 and SD9 caboose light back to Pekin. And W is always interesting, and everything was high nose. So U28B and U30B and W caboose composed of the red switch stand, which I thought's neat. A lot of railroads in the Peoria area use bay window cabooses. The TP&W, the Illinois Terminal, the Conrail, N&W, Rock Island, M&C&L, and Northwestern. So about half the railroads Peoria had bay window cabooses. Another CNIM coal train going down to either Havana or maybe Powerton, I'm not sure, with an IT caboose ready to go out. Multiple trains, Wesley Road, ICG, a train coming in, and once it clears, the BN coal train will cross over the tracks here and cross the river and go to Galesburg. And this is the bridge. It's now, the slide was taken in 90 actually, and so by this time the lift span has been replaced, which was in 84. The new P&PU bridge. And this shot was taken of the TP&W train westbound, crossing the river with a C424 800, GP40 number 1000, and GP30 700. What's really neat about this is boxcars. The Illinois Central and even a CNIM 40-foot boxcar in the train. Local coming back probably from Mapleton to the the TP Yard, crossing the bridge, looking upriver. There's a towboat going upriver there. You're looking north, and there's a BN U-30C about to cross the river with a coal train. This is more, quote, modern times, 1998, one of the rare SC-15A-3s, number 801, it's powered by a Caterpillar. This was an ex-CB&Q engine, actually, way back. We're in Bloomington for a couple of slides here. This is a Peoria Eastern GP7 with the Peorian coming in from Indianapolis through Bloomington. And this ran into Union Station in Peoria until it closed in 1955. And the passenger train still ran for 2 more years until 1957 into Pekin. But here's a shot. It stopped, obviously, but there's a lot going on in this photo in terms of the head end Railway Express Agency and baggage and mail and so forth and so on. So this was a very, very important source of business back in the day. This was taken in August of '55. And if that train would go straight and would come through Pekin on this line and make this curve and to go up to East Peoria and across the river to the Peoria Union Station. This is in Conrail days in '78, 5 units, and the Conrail caboose. And in the background is the Santa Fe yard and the Santa Fe depot and office. This was in the latter days. This branch was abandoned in '83, so a few years into the future. And going south and about to end our Peoria tour is this neat shot of a CNIM caboose at the CNIM station in Pekin in 1960. And further south at Powerton, the power plant, 2 SD-38s, bringing a loaded coal train into Powerton. And the Northwestern Bridge is in the background. And again, this picture was taken in 1977, but in '92 and '93 it opened. There was a interchange track built here connecting the Northwestern right to the CNIM, which is now the UP and the INM. And at South Pekin, the Northwestern had a very major facility. There was a highway, the main road crossed the tracks, and at this time there were 11 tracks there that crossed the road. So it was almost impossible to get across because it was in the yard lead and the main tracks and everything. But here's a Baldwin VO 1000 that had been modified with AMD engine switching. South Pekin was a crew change point on the Northwestern, and there were some real characters in this yard. Actually, when I gave this presentation before, we found out the name of this gentleman, Ronald Davis, but this was the days before high visibility vests and so forth. But he had his own high visibility plaids, both pants and shirts. So he was quite a character. This was a busy place. I mean, this is 1976, actually, and it's jam-packed with SD-40-2s and MT-1500. All this is gone today, which is very hard to believe. And this is on the same day, bicentennial GP18, number 1776. Now, switching gears here, going to early CB&Q photos. This was taken in April of 1952, and this is the Galesburg yard looking east toward Galesburg of the hump, and cars going down the hump, and how everything looked in 1952 on the railroad. This photo is 4-unit set of F3s at Galva, Illinois, eastbound. And this is in May, that was in May of '53. This was also in May of '53, a 484 westbound with a troop train going to Kewanee. That's Route 34 on the left. And I think that was a pleasant surprise for Dick. He didn't know what he was there for was this photo, actually. This is the westbound California Zephyr with 12 cars coming into Kewanee with the Burlington's F3 ABA set, number 9961 in the lead. And they didn't run these F units very long in passenger service, but they were in their glory, hightailing it today. And this is a great sequence. This is looking toward Galesburg, just north of Galesburg, and these are two eastbound trains. A freight train with the steam engine number 5631 is stopped. And then what you have tearing by it is the California Zephyr with 6 cars and 2 E8s. Now the Burlington E8s were built from late 49 to 1953. And so this was in 1953, June of 53. So this is brand new power. And steam engines in the same place, but this is another train. Dick is in a pretty precarious position photographing this train, but it's the eastbound Colorado one with 5 cars and an E7. And then he was at a much safer distance for this train. Of course, freight crew was waiting for all this fleet of passenger trains to go by eastbound. This is a Nebraska Zephyr with an E5 and articulated cars. And then finally, this is where the 3 tracks go to 2. The 485 can depart eastbound. Note some interesting Caterpillar loads. I came up from Peoria to Galesburg and are going to points east. And here we are in La Crosse, Wisconsin. This is E8A number 9972. This was built in September of 53, and this picture's taken in May of 54, so it's only 1 year old. But the unit behind, the Zephyr B unit, was built in 1936, and there are only 2 of them. So this is either 9906 or 9907 with the eastbound Empire Builder. And this is on Alaska, Wisconsin, again with another E8, and this is in June of 54, and a Zephyr A unit, again built in 36, with the eastbound North Coast Limited number 26. And that track in the front is a Northwestern La Crosse Winona line, which is now a bike path. Up in St. Paul, we have the Morning Hiawatha number 22 with 7 cars and 2 E5s built in 1940. There were only 11 E5s built, including the B units, and the Burlington owned all of them. This maybe is a rarer picture actually than the E5s. This is a PR2 cow and calf set in the same location on the same day, June 5th of 54. The reason this is somewhat rare is that after just a few years of service, the Burlington decided it rebuilt the cows into calves. It added calves to these units, so there are not that many images of the cow and calf engines in service. We're now back in Illinois at Rochelle. Obviously, everyone would know this place pretty darn well, but this is in June of 55, and we've got FTs on the Burlington headed to Chicago from the Twin Cities. They're crossing the Northwestern. The tower there is just behind the cab of blocked by the cab of the A unit. Dick spent the whole day this day here and photographed all the UP City streamliners here on the Northwestern. Remember, this is before they moved to the Milwaukee Road, which took place in October, so just about 4 months later. And there was a lot of passenger traffic here between all of the Burlington trains and the Northwestern UP trains. This was going away shot, same location, same freight train going eastbound. This is the westbound Twin Cities Zephyr, number 21. Lots of new domes. And now just moving a little bit to the east, there's a very nice curve that's still there. The Burlington, and this is the Empire Builder number 44. This is an E9 on the front, which was built in 54, and so is this 1955. It's only a year old itself. And the Great Northern Domes, believe it or not, were built in May of 55. And so the Great Northern Domes in this photo are only 1 month old. Same location, Dick whirled around, and basically at the same spot. This is looking south at Rochelle. This is unrecognizable today because there are all these warehouses off to the left, and tollway, the interstate I-88 tollway is about a half mile to south, which will be beyond that second set of signals there. This is a northbound North Coast Limited number 25 with an E8 on the front and 2 Zephyr units. So a lot of photos of Zephyr units here running on the Burlington, and they were built in 1936, and they were still going anywhere at 90 to 100 miles an hour in 1955. So very much in use. This is a going away shot of the same train, and I love this train. The color scheme I thought was spectacular. North Coast Limited is just beautiful. And the next train along, same day, was a 9-car train with 6 domes. And here he is going away past the coaling tower and the water tank at Rochelle, blazing off to Lee, Illinois. And Mike Schaefer lives, who did the map for us. And we very much appreciate his handiwork on the Peoria Railroad map. And what's amazing is next, actually, why would you throw this one away? This is only 6 weeks later, from June to August of 1955. And so after all those fancy streamliners racing through Rochelle, I thought you would get a kick out of this picture of the westbound Burlington mixed train number 77 in the official guide. This is at Bloomfield, Iowa, going through the tall weeds, so quite a contrast. In the official guide, number 77 was scheduled to leave Fort Madison at 8 in the morning and arrive in Bloomfield at 11:45, covering the 65 miles in 4 hours, doing switching en route. And you can see a tank car there, and then mixed baggage coach as well. And so it's quite a contrast to all the super fast streamliners, but the CB&Q still had this in the timetable. And the locomotive is interesting too. At first glance, I thought it was an SW1, but it had 2 stacks. So the train is powered by a rare 600 horsepower 1937 EMC SW, number 9130. So it's not an SW1. And the Burlington ordered 6 of these, and they were some of their earliest diesel switchers. This line was built in March of 1857 as the Fort Madison, West Point, Cossack, and Bloomfield Railroad to bring interior grain to the Mississippi River. And this branch was about 25 miles south of and parallel to the Burlington main line between Burlington and Ottumwa. And it was abandoned in parts beginning in 1956 and 57, just after this image was taken. So the summer of 55 was an amazing time of capturing things that were brand new and things that were about to be gone forever. And one shot in St. Louis. This is a one-of-a-kind engine on the Burlington, shovel nose 9908, the Silver Charger. This was a combination locomotive and baggage car built for the General Pershing Zephyr. And this is train number 43 here, which went from St. Louis to Kansas City to Lincoln, Nebraska to Billings, Montana. And next to it's the Abe Lincoln on the GM&O number 2. And also in St. Louis, the Burlington ran these GP7s in passenger service, and this is train 47, which went 323 miles to Savannah. Left St. Louis and went to Beardstown, and then to Galesburg, and then Rockingham, and then Savannah. A lot of that track is gone today. Galesburg, we have a 4-unit F3 set going eastbound to Chicago. Stock car. This is the passenger F units that I referred to before in the wash rack here in 1957. And we have a westbound train at Mulberry Street in Galesburg. And for those modelers in the audience, I thought it was interesting that the crossing gate tender is perched in his house up above on the signal bridge with a spiral staircase to get up there. But somehow that begs to be modeled, I think. Also, a sequence of shots at Galva, Illinois. There's a 2 E8s with the eastbound California Zephyr of 13 cars. He is meeting a freight train there in the distance with FTs. And here's a going away shot of that. And now the FTs are closer, 2 units, pulling an incredibly long train. And he now, going westbound, is meeting another freight. And my guess is these freights were on the main, and the dispatcher weaved the California Zephyr around them because these are right in sequence. And so this freight train is now appearing, going eastbound, passing the FTs we just saw, and another set of FTs coming at us. In this case, 4 units, ABBA 108D in the front. Now, many people will get a kick out of this. This is in Naperville. Well, looking at Naperville from Eola, Illinois, standing on the EJ&E Bridge, which is now the Canadian National. But these tracks are still there. But this is all built up on both sides of the track. It's warehouses and malls and houses and subdivisions and so forth. So this photo was taken in May 29th of 1960. So Memorial Day weekend, but it kind of blows my mind. I've been here a lot, but there's absolutely nothing but farmland here in 1960. And this is a going away shot, same day, Eola Tower there, signal bridges, Great GN, Empire Builder train headed up to Savannah and the Mississippi River to the Minneapolis and points west. And this is a Cameron, Illinois, outside of Galesburg. I like this. This is standing on the Santa Fe Bridge, looking at Galesburg, and at the lower level is the Burlington tract, also headed to Galesburg. And so there have been some neat articles on vanishing points in recent years, and this is a great illustration, I thought, of a double vanishing point. This photo was taken in May of '52. So that was 72 years ago, almost. And what's amazing about this slide film is it's almost as good as the day it was taken. So also Cameron are these FTs. Eastbound, 4 of them, under the Santa Fe. This is June 4th of '60. Same day, same location is the combined Nebraska Zephyr and Colorado one with 20 cars and 13 mail express cars on the front. So the going away photo at Cameron, the old elevators long gone. And the reason Dick was there was this. There's a long sequence. I just put in one photo of the 5632 flying by with special. Back in town, reasonably new GP20s in 1962 with the gas electric motor car number 9735. The same day in '62, GP20s and SD24 and a GP30, all either 1 year old or 2 or 3 years old. But same day, there are many F units in service in June of '62. There are 12 of them in this photo. Including the F3 9962 in the front, which have been converted at this point from passenger service to freight. Another photo of the gas electric car in Galesburg. This was the car once like it that ran the shuttle service back and forth between Peoria and Galesburg. on the Burlington, but that ended in 1960. There's photos in 62, and so they were still in use either as locals on the main line or maintenance way service or switching power local for local freight trains. There's a double header here in 1964 north of Galesburg. It's taken actually the same location as that earlier sequence with the steam engine. This is 5632 and 4960 flying north, going away shot. This is where 3 tracks go down to 2. And I'm sure Dick was shocked by what was at the rear of this train, a gondola full of fans, jam-packed, flying down the road. And I guess nobody had to sign waivers or whatever. I don't know. It was a warm day in May of 64, and everybody's having a wonderful time. It's a GE 44 tonner, and I'm wrapping up my presentation here. But there are 2 reasons that I included this photo, and you think, why this little engine? This is the first GE 44 tonner ever built in September of 1940. And so, and it actually also became BN #1 in 1970. So I thought that was pretty cool. This was taken in 1966. So the new GP30s with a color scheme I really like in Galesburg in 1966. And S2, Burlington S2, they didn't have many of them. Switching in Denver. Mississippi Palisades, this is combined Empire Builder North Coast Limited. So we've got 18 cars here and 4 units. And Dick took a series of images. I just included these, a down on pan shot, which is neat of the C9. And another E9 in Galesburg with freight train headed to Chicago. And reassembling the Nebraska Zephyr there, and the Nebraska Zephyr parting Galesburg in 1967, and brand new cabooses ordered by the Burlington in September of 67. And lastly, some of the newest power in 1969 GP40s that were built a year earlier. Some of the last power ordered by, not the last, but some of the last power ordered by the Burlington before the merger. And parting shots of Galesburg and the units at the station with all the tracks mainly gone now. And to wind up the Burlington, a wooden caboose in July of 70. So this is 4 months after the merger, which was March 2nd of 70. But a newly repainted red caboose labeled the Burlington. So that ends my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, Bon, just let me start off by saying what a spectacular presentation, and thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Wow. Someone's asking, when does the book come out?
Good question.
Well, Dick has a lot of great early everything, whether it's early Milwaukee Road shots, early Northwestern shots, early Illinois Central, so this is, the Burlington only, but a lot of neat things.
Yeah, I can tell you this Californian, I'm just blown away. There's some material here I've never seen before. And I think that Minneapolis Lewis became one of my new favorite railroads.
Yeah, well, one of the things, I don't know, I asked Dick over the years, how come most of the stuff has never been published.
Yeah.
And in the 50s, he sent some material to David Morgan at Trains that got rejected. And Dick was pretty put off by that. And so he decided he was never going to send him anything else again.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What a loss.
Yes.
And so Dick, always made it very clear he did this for his own enjoyment, not to get published. And as I said at the very beginning, he was an excellent photographer with great compositional skills. And it's so, I have the pleasure of sharing it now.
It's like finding a treasure chest. It's just wonderful. I think most of our audience was stunned for the first half of your program, and then I think everyone began to kind of regain their senses to some degree. The chat is going crazy, Bon. There are a lot of very thrilled people in the comments.
Well, I'll have to see that somehow, I guess.
Yeah,
I'll share it with you later.
We'll have the transcript saved. But no, and thank you everyone for staying with us too. I mean, we're still over 200 here at 8:30. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll have this up on
Sorry
YouTube.
about long.
Oh no, I don't think anyone was complaining. In fact,
No.
I put a note up saying we were just going to let it run and it would be on YouTube later, and right away someone commented more. So but as I say, we will have this up on YouTube in a week or so. We'll have another presentation in May, and we'll have information about that on our website and social media. But in the meantime, I do see a few questions coming into the Q&A. I should get that up. And before I get into those, Bon, I just wanted to start, not so much a question, but if you would just tell the story of how Dick helped you acquire your first camera.
Well, I'm not sure which first camera you mean. I had an older first camera, but
well, your first good camera for slide film.
Yeah. So in 1971, when I graduated from Woodruff High School, as my graduation present, Dick took my dad to Peoria Camera, and he bought a Canon FTB for me. And I used colors, prints a little bit, but mainly color slides and that. So since 71, I've had so-called a good camera. So I still have that FTB. So anyway, so Dick engineered that, actually. So it's great. And he taught a lot. I never did have a photography class in my life, but he taught me about the rule of thirds and composition, so forth and so on. So, to use the pan shots and low shutter speeds to get blurring action where it was enhance the photo and so forth and so on. So he loved doing it.
Well, we do have a few questions coming in. One just asks about how many M and St. L shots are in the collection, to reference Elron's new favorite railroad.
Right. I don't know off the top of my head. I can easily look that up, but it's less than 100.
Okay.
I know that. And I asked Dick about that. He just didn't get over to St. L that much when he was in the 50s. I mean, first of all, he was at Knox College in the early 50s, and he was in the Army for a couple of years in the mid, 53, 54. So he actually wasn't in Peoria, but he doesn't actually have any Illinois terminal shots of it in under the wire. That ended in 55, 56, depending where you were. So them and St. L have many beautiful different color schemes, green and red, or green and yellow, and so forth. So, but no, it's mainly the late 50s that he has M St. L.
Well, a couple
less than 100.
A couple of questions just about some of the photographs that came up, and I'm pretty sure the first one was just asking about. I think this is right, but the first question is asking about the opening shot of Dick. That's the Cimarron River near Liberal, Kansas.
Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that. That's just outside of Liberal, Kansas, and that's the Rock Island Tucumcari line, and that is the Cinnamon River Bridge. Yeah. We were there photographing. We spent a lot of time in Kansas, many trips. So,
and then another question about.
And Dick's wife was from Kansas, actually, Nancy. So originally.
Another question about photo locations. The shot of the Galesburg Hump Yard photo in the 50s. Was that view looking east or west?
East.
Okay.
East, and I have the shot looking west also, and I didn't, So I hope Dick got permission. I don't know. It was in 1952 and he was at Knox College, but he clearly climbed up to the top of the light tower in the yard. And that would be a harrowing experience all by itself because there were no safety railings or anything. It was just like a ladder straight up
Well, who
into the
needs a
sky.
drone when you could climb a light tower?
And so some of the photos have in the edges the lamps. So there's more than one. I just showed one to illustrate it, but yeah. So he took a number of photos then of the Galesburg Yard from up there.
Oh yeah,
That was looking east though, that one.
right,
The next one I didn't show was looking west.
right. And then I think I could answer this one too, but John Caligal mentioned being in Peoria a few months ago and coming across an old train station near the river that is now a bar, and he's wondering which station that is.
The Rock Island Station. It's across the street from the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and there's a great restaurant there and a wonderful bar too. So
I seem to recall that's one of our friend John Morris, the CEO of the Riverfront Museum,
yes,
favorite lunch spots in Peoria.
yes, yes,
No,
yes.
great location. And then, well, our fellow board member Todd Halamka asks, if you had to choose a favorite railroad line from your years of travel with Dick, what would it be? And then also a favorite memory or two to share from your travels with him.
Oh yeah, that restaurant is the Blue Duck Barbecue Tavern in Peoria across the museum, and right now it's busier than usual.
Ah, well, there we go.
Okay, a favorite railroad with Dick?
Yes, and favorite memories of traveling with him.
Oh, brother. Well, we took 35 trips. And I mean, you know, from California to Vermont and whatever, from British Columbia to Quebec. It would be hard to say. Each one of these trips, you know, we were trying to photograph, you know, every road in a certain area. So he would map all this out months and months ahead of time. I would typically be the driver, and he is a navigator. When these trips started in the 80s, we had topo maps basically of every state. And so if we were going to Arkansas or Missouri, you know, or parts of Oklahoma, we would ride ahead every railroad in that state. Or if we were going up to the iron ore range in Minnesota, we were right ahead to all the iron ore companies. And you know, Theory Mining, we got permission to not only photograph the trains on the property, but they gave us a tour in a pickup truck down in the pits where they had the Alcos switching cars down with the shovels and so forth. So there's a lot of, you know, neat things that we did. I don't know. It's hard to think of one thing that stands out completely. I mean, the greatest thrill was, you know, a lot of these railroads in the U.S. are 1 or 2 engine railroads, was to find them, and then to photograph them running. So it seemed like, you know, we planned around the weekdays and such, but tried to photograph the mainline roads on the weekends. But we would get skunked, but pretty rarely. So we typically had we realized this will make you cringe, but Scott, but we would photograph about 5. That was about them, you know. Now you're going to camp out someplace for days and days and days, and we were on one thing to the next, but. So.
No, it's just incredible for me to think of growing up in a town with that many railroads in it, let alone all the places you went to and saw over the years and all those trips.
Well, so many, I mean, actually, you know, basically, other than the Union Pacific, every one of the class ones has changed. And I mean, the CP and CN is still with us, but so it's just, you know, many of the short lines aren't there anymore. Like David Plowden said, he photographed, he felt he was one step ahead of the wrecking ball. And Dick and I said that all the time because your after we went somewhere, it was gone. So.
We had another question too about what happened to Dick's non-railroad photographs. Are they being preserved?
Right. Yes. His family has them. His daughters have them. He has a lot of airline photos that were taken in the same time period. Of course, almost all the planes and the photos are gone, and many of the airlines are gone. And he also, because he was so active in civic affairs and on the city council and mayor briefly, as I said, of Peoria, he photographed courthouses. So he would know all over the country, whether we're in Illinois or Kansas or anywhere, we would find the courthouse and depending on time of day and trees and so forth, we would stop and he would take some very nice images of those courthouses. And of course, those courthouses are some of the most beautiful buildings in many counties. Alive and well today. So the family has all those images and their own family photos, clearly.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I see at least one of them is with us tonight too.
Jane and Kate, I think both on. I'm not sure.
I think they both are.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, we're so glad.
Yeah. No, thank you both so much for joining us and for letting Bond take on your dad's work and Bond, your work and your colleagues' work on putting this collection together. I mean, it's a tremendous collection, especially to have digitized privately the way you did just on your own like that.
Yeah, it took a while, but the good thing is it's all labeled, and I'd love to have, and Dick would love to have the center have it. And the only reason it doesn't have it now is that I was 30 years delayed in labeling my own images, and since so many of them with Dick, I'm slowly but surely using it as reference material to label my own things.
Nice to have a friend along to take the notes for you.
Yeah, well, I actually did take the notes on these trips, so I have those trip logs, which are valuable, but he actually has his slides labeled. Didn't have the time to do until more recently, so about half done.
Yeah, these are not small projects.
No.
And Bon, I want to add too. I mean, having helped put the PowerPoint together, this is actually the first time I've gotten to see you deliver the narration for this, and you just make it come alive. I mean, your depth of knowledge for the material is just incredible, and the personal touch you can give to it is tremendous.
Actually, in response to the railroad question, I think the thing that stands out, it's not so much a particular railroad, as I said, but what the experience that I really still treasure of, well, not only Dick's companionship on all those trips, but seeing America. And so, as you know, the railroad lines, generally along 2-lane highways. And so we were almost never on the interstates. I mean, Elton, I think I've told you this, but we actually drove on Route 66 all the way to California and back. Not to be on Route 66 per se, which we were the whole way, through Missouri and Oklahoma and Amarillo and across New Mexico and Arizona and so forth into California, but because we were following the railroads the whole way.
Right.
And that was one trip. I drove 6,000 miles. We were averaging 500 miles a day. It didn't seem like it because we were stopping all the time, and we had places that that we went to see, in outside of Kingman or whatever. And so, we drove one trip east, was to Quebec and back, driving. And essentially we went across through Detroit in southern Ontario and over Lake Erie and over through Toronto and Montreal and Quebec City and all the way to Sept-Îles to photograph the iron ore railroads there. Again, we rode ahead and got tours of the shops and so forth, and the two railroads there. But then we took a ferry Baie-Comeau, Montaigne Ferry to the Gaspé Peninsula, and essentially drove all the way back to Chicago underneath the St. Lawrence, River, southern Quebec, and over Maine and over Vermont and through the Thousand Island regions of upstate New York and so forth. That was a 5,000-mile trip, and we only went one time zone. And so the last thing I would say is I remember being in upstate New York near north of Syracuse and so forth in the apple fruit belt under Lake Ontario. And it was dusk, and we were getting, close to where our hotel was, and we came across this a farm stand, and it was still sort of light but sort of dark, and the farmhouse was lit, and this fruit stand was chock-a-block with apples and wheat corn and tomatoes and carrots and all kinds of stuff. And so we pull off the road. We're going to get some things that we could use for the next day, and we could see the people in the house. And nobody's coming out. And then we see a sign on the side of the house that says self-serve, and it has a big arrow to a box, and it said money box, like this big on it. And we said, it's gotta be right here. And so we got the produce we wanted, and we went to the money box, and sure enough, there was a bunch of money in there. We made our own change. We put the right amount in, and we left. And that wasn't that many years ago. And so that's the part of this whole adventure that's been so heartwarming, is all the people you meet along the road that give you a homemade apple pie or whatever. And so it's there's so many wonderful trusting people still out there.
Wow. That's tremendous. Wow.
It is. And that's an experience you could still have today. You could still make those road trips, even though the trains have changed.
Yeah.
I think, and that's what I love about Dick, is how he got it when steam faded, he got even more excited because he saw all these new opportunities. And I
don't get me wrong. His favorite, if I were to ask him what his favorite locomotive was, he would say the UP 412 tubes.
Okay.
Okay, so don't, but
keep that in perspective.
That's because his family went to Stead's Ranch in Estes Park, Colorado every year for vacation, and they took Route 30 along the UP to get there, Peoria. And so even as a little kid in the car, he grew up, seeing 412-2s in Nebraska, and then in the 50s, his early UP photos do have 412-2s in action, and big boys and streamliners and Cheyenne and so forth. So anyway, he's 10,000 UP slides. So
did he shoot any black and white at all, Bon, or was it all color from the get-go?
No, all color.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Some of his first images were at the Chicago Rail Fair, 1949 to 50. So color slides also.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. All the way from the beginning.
Yeah. And by the way, he developed for not every railroad, but like 125 of the largest in his collection, which is a lot, the vast majority, a card catalog album that cross-referenced the slides. And so if you were to say, I want to see how many shots of Santa Fe GP 30, this, that, and the other are in the collection, you can go to that, because that card file is an order of locomotive number.
Wow.
And so you can find that locomotive, and on that 4x6 card is all the locations of that locomotive, the dates and so forth. And then if it was retired and became a short line engine, where we shot that.
Wow.
So the whole thing is cross-indexed.
Wow.
Oh, we had another question too. Did he ever photograph any of the interurbans or electric railroads?
No, he didn't.
I mean, there probably weren't that many.
I'm thinking of it in an old school way.
Sure.
He does have some he has some North Shore images before the North Shore shut down, including some really neat ones up at Rondout in the early 60s with Indy center cabs going underneath. And Norm Carlson actually put that on the cover of First and Fastest ways back. And then he has a lot of photos of the South Shore, you know, in the Chicago area with the Little Joe Electric and things like that. But in terms of regular interurbans, no. I mean, they were all mainly gone.
Well, yeah,
exactly. You know, but in the 50s.
Yeah.
That. I mean, that's a neat. I mean, no, he photographed the New Haven in the 50s and 60s. You know, all the new McGinnis color schemes and electrics there too, and electrics on the Pensy, and so electrics in the mainline railroad sense.
Sure.
Milwaukee Road electrics, Butte, Anacona, and Pacific. You know, other things. Great Northern.
Quite a bit then.
Well, thank you for introducing me to one of my new heroes. This has been just tremendous.
No, what a fantastic evening.
Well, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure to do it.
No, thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Well, when would you estimate we might have this available online?
I think we are going to work to have this online next week.
Okay.
So give me about a week or so, and we'll get it posted to our YouTube page at Rail Photo Art. And I will be sure to promote it on our social media, and we'll probably send an email out to all of you who have attended tonight and to everyone who registered.
Great. Well,
you know, Scott, one show that would be fun to do would take a lot of time on my part, but because he liked the streamliners, he photographed the rear of the trains always. And so there could be a whole show on round end observation cars on the Pensy and the New York Central and the Illinois Central and the Rock Island and the Santa Fe, believe it or not, rounded up.
Yeah.
Well, no, to have a show on those streamliners
and the Milwaukee, you know, Skytop cars and early service, and the Norfolk, I mean Northern Pacific and Great Northern and so forth. You just saw some of that today, but he's got Monon, you name it. So early Mopac streamliners, early CNEI streamliners, front and rear.
I think having something on his streamliners would be, I mean, that'd be a tremendous project.
Yeah. Yeah, Great Western passenger trains. You just Chicago Great Western, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. The depth of his coverage is just amazing.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's a stunning collection. And to have the, you know, the middle part of the country in those, you know, early diesel era is just a, that's a tremendous archive in itself.
Yeah, very much.
Well, Bon, thank you again for just a tremendous show and a great evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be back in May. That's going to be a members only show with a look in our Henry Posner collection, hosted by Henry and Gil Taylor, our archivist processing that collection. We'll have information up soon on our website and social media about that for anyone who wants to sign up. And as Elron says, we'll have Bon's show about Dick Neumiller's photography up on our YouTube site by the end of next week. So thanks again for joining us. Hope to see you all again soon. And Bon, thank you again for just a fantastic evening.
Thank you both. It's a thrill.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.